Hi, how y'all doing today? Yogi Angel 7 here, and I was wanting to talk about um, eating disorders and food and nutrition, different approaches that people have to natural supplementation, and this is sort of in response to something that Fasting Girl 31 did, but it could be applied to lots of different things. There's a particular book that she's referring to called, let's see if I get the book right. I think it's Woman, Food, and God by Janine Roth. And I've never read the book myself, but the approach has to do with finding a way to approach an eating disorder for a person that allows them to feel their feelings and not be relying on food as a form of comfort and that kind of thing. So since I haven't read that book, but I have read so many others, I'm going to just be referring to that as an idea, basically, and not specifically things that are listed in her book. So if you're interested in learning about that and some opinions I have about it and ideas about that, I look forward to sharing that with you. Please continue to watch. Otherwise, bright blessings to you. Take care. Thank you. Okay, so I just wanted to talk just briefly about my own personal history. Yeah, I was treated for eating disorders different times in my life, and I do have some training in psychology. After college, I worked as a psych tech for, well, like 2 to 3 years. So I have some basic psych training and experience, of course, with the people that I worked with, and got to see a lot of different kinds of psychological approaches growing up because my mom's a psychiatric social worker, and different things that she used to talk about. So when I think about using cognitive type therapies, talk therapies, and teaching a person how to work through an eating disorder, there are some really good benchmark standards that people use, and one of my favorite that I ever found was in a book called The Solution. The Solution is by Laurel Mellon, and she has on her website an amazing support system, and it sounds very similar to the things that are, but just with a different sort of a slant as the book that Fasting Girl 31 was referring to, Women, God, and Food. And one of those things was learning to sit with your feelings and that kind of thing. And I think that those are incredibly valuable tools to learn that a lot of people just never acquired over time for whatever kind of a reason. Now, whenever I used to talk to my mom about, the different approaches that people had, the doctors had, to eating disorders, one of the things she told me was, particularly as a standard of care for instance, depression, that a dual prong approach is used, that a physician, the psychiatrist, will usually release a patient either from care not using a drug like an antidepressant or something like that, or they will say that they are needing an antidepressant and that talk therapy along with that will help them. So, okay, that's just an approach for depression. And when she ever explained that to me, and when we learned that as a psych tech, I always wondered, well, why wouldn't the same thing hold true for eating disorders and other things that could possibly be manifestations of depression? And I never saw that as an approach, and I'm not saying that I advocate that, but here's something that I did find, and this has to do with my natural training background and 2 other doctors that I worked with. Different types of nutritional deficiencies seemed to present themselves, and they were able to help those people, but they would have manifested as and could have been actually diagnosed as people with mental disorders. Like, for instance, And this is really common in orthomolecular medicine, that like a lack of vitamin B3 can look like schizophrenia, or allergies to different kinds of molds and fungus actually will look like psychosis. And people can have full-blown expressions and be diagnosed with those diseases, and actually they're either deficiencies or allergies. And I thought that was really interesting. So when I looked at approaches of eating disorders, I started to sort of put the two together in my mind, and then I realized after 5 years of sort of putting all these threads together that I certainly wasn't the first person who thought of this, and that there is an entire branch of medicine that's devoted to it. One of them is orthomolecular medicine, which is very common in Canada, and it's the more natural approach to psychiatry there that they use. And the other one here in the States is called nutritional psychology.